Roberta Kathleen Parks was born on February 27, 1954 in Lakewood, Ohio, USA. She was a daughter of Catherine and Charles Parks and had two sisters named Sharon and Susan. Her full name was Roberta Kathleen Parks, but friends and family called her Kathy. She had been born prematurely. She was weighing only 2 pounds and 9 ounces and was placed in an incubator, where she gained weight. Kathy's face was slightly elongated, because in the incubator she lay on her side for the first weeks of her life. In the book The Deliberate Stranger, author Richard Larson described her as a young woman, the slenderness of her face gave Kathy a rather dramatic look of fragile beauty. When Kathy was a child, she moved with her family to California. In 1968 and 1972 she attended Ocollanis High School and later she was educated at Diablo Valley College. In 1974, Kathy was a student at Oregon State University in Corvallis, where she was majoring in world religions at the time, but she still wasn't sure what she wanted to do with her life. She was very sensitive and needed a long time to recover from the emotional upheaval. She was really beautiful, demure and a smart girl. She was also very shy, quiet and withdrawn person. For example, she rarely smiled and rarely spoke aloud in class. For her 20th birthday, her dad Chuck Parks wrote her a letter stating that he couldn't believe 20 years had gone by since he'd looked at her in an incubator at Lakewood Hospital in Cleveland. He urged her to take practical courses that would assure her financial independence. Due to her teenage rebellion, the relationship with her parents was very turbulent, but this letter touched Kathy deeply. She was going through a difficult time and wasn't very happy at the time. As mentioned before, she was constantly arguing with her parents, worried about her future career, and had relationship problems with her boyfriend, Christy McPhee. They used to live in Louisiana together, but she moved to Oregon for university. According to Kathy's friends, Christy insisted on marriage, but Kathy was not ready for such a big step and planned to break up with him. Police findings show that her parents did not accept their relationship. May 6, 1974 was even worse for Kathy because of the news she received from her sister. Her father had a heart attack. This caused great guilt in Kathy because she had had an argument with him on the phone only 2 days earlier and thought the heart attack was caused by the emotions the argument had stirred up. Fortunately, that same day, her sister called her again and told her that according to the doctors, their father would most likely survive. This improved Kathy's mood, but it is safe to say that May 6 was very stressful and full of emotions for her. This is clearly visible in the letter she wrote to her boyfriend despite the problems in their relationship. The letter was postmarked on May 7, 1974, which is the day of her disappearance. "I'm sorry this is such a bum letter. I really am. But, after all, everyone has their ups and downs. This day has especially had its share of bad news." She wrote, "I think I'll go walk around outside a while." Kathy left her dorm at Sackett Hall around 11 p.m. She was last seen walking between her dorm room and the common area of the Memorial Union building. On the way, she met her friend Lorraine Fargo and stopped to talk to her. They talked briefly about the upcoming Spanish test, but Kathy said goodbye to Lorraine quickly, saying that she was going to cafeteria to get some hot fudge sundae. She was in a hurry because the cafeteria closed at 11 p.m. To reach her destination she would turn left onto 26th Street. Unfortunately, Lorraine was the last person to see Kathy. Kathy didn't return to her dorm at Sackett Hall that night. There was a rule on campus that all students had to be in their dorms by 2 a.m., unless they had made prior arrangements with their resident advisor. Lorraine found Kathy's absence strange because she was a very responsible student and this behavior wasn't like her. Still, she didn't think even for a second that something bad had happened to her. The next day, when Kathy still didn't show up, her roommates became worried. However, they weren't sure if they should report her missing. They thought she might be off campus and needed some space. They thought she might come back soon and didn't want her to get in trouble by telling someone about it. But later that day, when their worries became overwhelming, they decided to contact their resident advisor and inform him about the situation. Authorities considered the possibility that she just left for her family home in California. But days passed and she hasn't shown there. Due to Kathy's mental state, the police, as in the case of Donna Manson, believe that she might have committed suicide. According to healthcare workers, Kathy was having a lot of problems at the time. One of the doctors treating Kathy said that she was unpredictable, capable of running off, and she may have had suicidal tendencies. Other doctors said that Kathy was angry, upset, emotional, depressed, and was threatening suicide. Other doctors treating Kathy shared similar opinions. One of them even recalled how she once talked about getting away. For a week after the Kathy's disappearance was reported, officers combed the area for the body, even checking the bottom of a nearby river. It didn't get them anywhere, so they started printing leaflets and sending them to the local police. Due to a heart attack, Kathy's father was not informed of his daughter's disappearance until a week later, when his condition was stable. His family wanted him to get better, and hearing about Kathy would most likely tear him apart and not help his recovery. 1 week after Kathy's disappearance, $1,500 reward was offered for information leading to personal contact with her. 𝙆𝘼𝙍𝙆𝙎, Oregon State University's lead campus security investigator, appealed for information about Kathy and her whereabouts. He asked that anyone with information that could assist in the investigation should notify local or state police or call OSU campus security. His office received numerous calls from people who thought they had information on Kathy, but none of them revealed new leads. At first, the media avoided linking the case of Kathy's disappearance with other missing girls. Linda Ann Healy, Donna Manson, and Susan Rancourt were abducted from the Seattle area when Kathy disappeared from an area 250 miles away. Additionally, after Kathy's disappearance, the disappearances of young women did not end. Brenda Ball and Georgianne Hawkins disappeared in June, and Janice Ott and Denise Naslund disappeared in July. Their disappearances also occurred in and around Seattle. It was because of the distance many people sincerely doubted the connection between Kathy's case and the other victims. At that time, the police were already looking for a suspect identifying himself as Ted. They doubted the killer would have ventured further than the Seattle area. That's why the version with suicide or escape was the most they considered in the case of Kathy. On March 3, 1975, in Issaquah, Washington, 9 months after she disappeared, a search team discovered human remains in a wooded area near Taylor Mountain. One of the skulls and jawbones belonged to Kathy. She was identified by 4 days later. The jawbone was x-rayed, then the x-rays were overlaid on Kathy's dental charts. "There's no doubt," Harris said. "It's positively Kathy." Finding Kathy's remains among the other victims was a shocking discovery for the investigators, because, as already mentioned, they did not connect these cases. The cause of her death couldn't be determined, but her case was ruled a homicide. Kathy's parents took the news of her identification pretty well. Harris said that they had resigned themselves to the possibility their daughter was dead. "We have to catch this guy before it happens again," Kathy's dad Chuck said to William Harris. Serial killer Ted Bundy confessed to killing Kathy shortly before his execution in 1989. He spoke about many of his crimes in third person, and that was the same with his confession about Roberta. Because of this, his confession couldn't be considered as 100% authentic. According to Bundy, Roberta was sitting in a library or cafeteria studying, and he decided to sit down beside her. He said she looked lonely and depressed. He introduced himself as a student and suggested her to go out somewhere to get something to eat or to drink. According to Bundy, she accepted his invitation because he was persuasive enough, or she simply wanted to take her mind off other matters. He couldn't attack her in a place where at any moment someone could walk down the street and witness the attack, so he had to take her to a secluded place. Once in the car, Bundy lied and said he had to pick up his thesis from a nearby typist. At this stage he went to a secluded place where he attacked her. His testimony may of course be true, but many things in his version of events do not add up. 1. One of Roberta's friends stated that despite her relationship problems with Christie, she was always quick to reject other men's advances. She was convinced that Roberta would never leave campus with a stranger. 2. When Kathy met her friend Lorraine outside the Memorial Union, it was almost 11 p.m. It was closing time for the cafe. Would Bundy have enough time to approach Roberta, strike up a conversation, and then convince her to go out with him? 3. No one saw Roberta in the cafeteria that day, which may suggest that she never got there. 4. At the time, Bundy still maintained his innocence and believed he had been wrongly convicted of murder. As a result, his guesses about what the killer might have done may have been far from the truth. 5. During the abduction of Susan Rancourt and Georgianne, Hawkins feigned injury and asked them to help him carry something to the car. In both cases, he parked his Volkswagen Bug strategically in isolated parking lots that were a short distance away. He also used a false ruse in the kidnappings of Janice Ott and Denise Naslund on Lake Sammamish. It seems quite doubtful that he would have acted differently in Kathy's case. What we know for sure is that after luring Kathy into his car, Bundy made the approximately 5-hour trip with her from Oregon to Taylor Mountain. It is unknown whether Kathy was alive during the trip. She could be fully conscious, unconscious, or already dead. However, it is believed that Kathy was murdered in the early morning hours of May 7 after being tortured. For many years, it was believed that only the heads of Bundy's victims were located on Taylor Mountain. All of the bones, apart skulls, were deemed to be of animal origin. But in 2005, the King County Medical Examiner's Office found a box with various remains and identified several to be human leg bones. For this reason, it was decided to contact the families of Bundy's victims to collect DNA samples for later testing. DNA samples were obtained from the families of all Bundy victims except Linda and Healy. Her brother Robert wanted nothing to do with the case because his family had already closed the chapter and didn't want to go through it again. On June 26, 2008, DNA results from unidentified bones were received. 2 of 12 bones were identified as Kathy's. After receiving the news, her sister Susan stated that she wanted to have her remains as soon as possible, so most likely her remains were buried. Kathy's boyfriend Christy McPhee passed away in 2017 but loved to remember Kathy until the end. Christy's daughter said he had Kathy's name tattooed on his left bicep and that he always talked about her with happiness. Kathy's father Charles died before Bundy's execution, in 1986, and her mom Catherine in 2009. Kathy died on May 7, 1974 at the age of 20. If she was alive, she would be 70 today.